Hello, my name is George. This is GLLR Cars. Today we're talking the 2020 BMW X5. The BMW X5, this model is the 40i. And what the 40i designation means is that it is a inline six-cylinder 3.0 engine. So this engine is a similar engine to the one you see in cars like the BMW 340, the BMW 440. So that 40 designation used to mean that it was the liters, the number of liters, but that's no longer the case. It used to follow that numbering designation, but I guess the marketing department decided to keep upping the numbers even though the engine displacement has not changed. Nevertheless, this inline six that's turbocharged delivers 335 horsepower. The torque is 330 foot-pounds of torque. So this is not a small car. This is a full-size SUV. The X5 is the it's actually in the middle of it's in the middle of the pack. There is the X3, which is smaller than this. There is the X7, which is larger than this, and then the X5. Again, there are even smaller SUVs than the X3. There's even an X2 and even an X1. But this car is, in my view, a large SUV. If you have a family and you need an SUV, it does have, 2 rows of seats. If you were to get the X7, you can do that and get away with 3 rows of seats. But it is a large SUV, and the first question that comes to mind is, would the 6-cylinder engine be enough power for punching this car if you were to punch it? And you take a drive, we'll take a look at that. But first thing to talk about is the appearance of the car. And excuse for the car being a little bit dirty. It's been raining, it's been a little muddy, so it's been hard to keep it clean. The first thing that comes to mind is the very large kidney grills. It is a staple of this brand of car, and it does have the openings that will automatically open if the engine requires more air. These will open, and they normally close to allow air in. The fog lights are very slim in the bottom. The laser lights in the front are typical ones that you see in any of the other models. I think that the elephant in the room related to the look and feel of the car is the view of those kidney grills. And I would probably say it's a matter of choice. And my view is not my favorite, but it's not bad enough that I wouldn't drive it. It's still okay. In terms of the profile look of the car, it's a pretty good profile look. It doesn't look as if the vehicle were too conservative. It looks a little bit aggressive. What I like about it is the roof line kind of curves a little bit at an angle, and then the overhang is a little bit aggressive when it comes over in the back. So very nice. These rims, or not the wheels, excuse me, that it has with the multi-spokes on it is very appealing. It does not have some of the M improvements and things like that, like the brake calipers and things like that, but it's still for a luxury vehicle that has some of the things that you need to see, such as very appealing wheels, very nice profile, very nice look. This will not disappoint. One thing that I like about this car, by the way, if you were to lock this car and it folds the mirrors, it makes the beep, it locks the door, and notice that it locked it because I have the keys in my pocket and I just touched that knob on the door. The car is set up that I don't have to touch it again to unlock it. So not only does it take it a step further where you don't have to get the keys out of your pocket. As I approach it, if you heard that, hopefully the camera caught it. The mirrors folded back out, it beeped, it's already unlocked. So it's good to go. So as you approach the vehicle, it already detects that based on the proximity sensor on the key. The other thing that I like is back over here, and there's several ways of opening this hatch area. One is, you press the button like I did. Another one is with the key fob, and then the other one is a button that is in the inside of the vehicle. If you look at how it is set up here, notice that it has this hatch area, but it has a mini tailgate here, which the mini tailgate can also open electronically. And it is very refreshing to have something like this, because you can kind of sit here if you're setting something up, even if you're having a tailgate party and you don't have a pickup truck, and you can just use this as a mini tailgate. It's very convenient. It was a very nice touch that BMW had to be able to do this. Something, since we're talking already about the interior a little bit, it's got a number of outlets here. It's got a 12-volt outlet, and it's got a way to fold the seats in the back from over here. It's got a rail here for an optional, like a cargo cover area, or shelf rather, and as well as a little bit of space under there, considerably enough number of space there. And so now to close it back, the best way to do it is just to come up here on the top and then just hit it. They both close simultaneously. Well, not simultaneously, the lower part, the mini tailgate, has to close first, but nevertheless it's a very nice touch. Let's move on. I talked a little bit about the outside and the look and feel. Again, very aggressive, very good looking. You don't feel like you're just driving some family vehicle. You're driving a luxury sports vehicle. That's what this is intended to look like. If we look at the interior of it, it's as BMW has done to improve the look and feel, it is a nice place to be. You have very well finished leather seating. You have a very clean center console with most of the buttons in there. One of the things that BMW does, and a few other car makers do, is that your cup holders, your phone charger, everything else, they go ahead and hide it under this cover. So you have your phone induction charger here, you have an extra USB, you have another 12-volt adapter here, your cup holders with the retractable tabs so that you can put larger drinks on there. Very well finished, very well set up. The cabin is very well laid out. The on the top, on some other cars, they normally tend to put like sunglasses holder here on the top, but BMW doesn't do that. What they do is, let me turn it on first so I can talk through this. They have the controls for the sunroof here, and it's a very large sunroof. It opens all the way to the back, so it does give it a very spacious and open look. So because of the sunroof being here, the dome lights are not in the center. You can see that they're on each one of the sides of the car, and then here in the front you have them up here. So very good job in doing that. The stitching, the leather upholstery, the soft touch surfaces is very upscale, and it's not just on the dashboard region, but as well as on the doors. I think the only area where you can tell that it's slightly different is as it gets closer to the buttons. This is a little bit plasticky out here, so that will probably be the only area where I would have preferred that they would have wrapped it all up as they did the rest of this. But again, all the areas where you put your hands, where you put your arms, very soft. By the way, in here also a little bit of storage there, not significantly big for an SUV of this size, but something that is relatively comfortable. The infotainment system, I've talked about the infotainment system in other BMWs, but on 2020 models they've taken it a step further, where if you were to go to home there, they have a Apple CarPlay that is wireless, and it is also an Apple CarPlay that is the full screen. So and then of course it's a touchscreen as well, so you can actually view these very large icons, which is a very gorgeous look. They don't have the Android Auto available yet, but I think that cars providing Apple CarPlay compatibility for those of you who use Apple or have an iPhone, it is a very nice interface, because the reality of infotainment systems are that no matter how advanced they are, they will eventually be dated. Over time, they will just not keep up with technology. And as we know, technology moves pretty quickly. So if the car is able to display the features of your phone, as your phone has more apps and more features and more technology to show, your infotainment system will now be able to quote unquote keep up. And that is because it's not your infotainment system being shown, it is your actual mobile device. So I'm a big proponent of supporting Apple CarPlay, and then I believe by late 2020 and 2021 models will have the Android Auto interface, and as well it's going to be wireless as well. By the way, just another comment related to how is this done via wireless. It is not Bluetooth. Obviously there's Bluetooth to be able to play your music and whatnot, but in order for this to be fairly quick and nearly instantaneous, what it does is the car will broadcast a Wi-Fi signal, and once Bluetooth is paired to the car, it uses that Wi-Fi signal to join that Wi-Fi access point that your car emits to be able to mirror your screen. And that's basically what it is. It's sort of like a screen mirroring program. First impressions are related to the ride quality of this car. As I'm going down an expressway, and it's not 100% smooth, there'll be a few bumps, and it's not as smooth as one would think. I've driven on these roads on other cars, and I've been able to tell how soft a ride can be. Right now this car is set up for adaptive mode, so if I'm not punching it, if I'm not driving aggressive, it will have the style of what would normally be something like a comfort mode, although I could put it in comfort mode. It is very smooth, yet it still has a good positive feel to the road. So I know that I'm going over a few bumps, but it's not uncomfortable. And the steering of the wheel is still fairly positive. So now I'm going to go ahead and switch it over to sports mode. So this immediately puts me on a lower gear, but everything tightens a little bit. And under this, I can feel already that the responsiveness of the steering wheel, it's better, but it's a little bit more stiff. And because I'm in a lower gear, if I am just cruising and I just punch it a little bit, it responds pretty quickly. So it does what it's supposed to do under the mode that you drive it under. But if I go back to adaptive mode, and I immediately feel that my RPMs go down, the car is driving smoother, the suspension gets a little bit softer, and it is a very comfortable place to be. I am also very surprised by the feel of the steering wheel. It's a little bit of a chunky steering wheel, but although it's leather covered, you can feel that it has rubber under it, where when you squeeze it, it does give a little bit, so it's very good on the hand. The paddle shifters, although they are a little bit small, they are very positive. They feel very positive. If I shift down, punch it a little bit, shift up, there isn't a whole lot of delay between the paddle shifter and the response on the transmission. They are plastic paddle shifters. They do paint them in a metallic color, but I stand corrected. These are metallic. It just has a cover on the other end, but it is metallic. but it does feel and look very good. The cabin is very well laid out, so this particular model does not have a heads-up display, but if I'm sitting here with a very good commanding view of the road and I can see the instrument panel and I just barely glance to my right and there is the infotainment screen. It's a very big screen where right now I have it on maps, but I can put it in a number of configurations. It does give me good visibility to all the information that I need, not only within a good visibility, but also within my fingertips. So I can either use the iDrive knob or I can touch the screen. The good things about this model is that it knows what you're doing. Like, for instance, if your hand approaches the screen, it does pop the menus, knowing that your hand is near proximity of the touchscreen. If you retract that within 15 to 20 seconds, it goes back to the screen that hides all the menus. So already has a little bit of intelligence built into it. In terms of the acceleration, that's maybe the elephant in the room to address here. It is better than I expected. In fact, it's very good. This car that is equipped with a 6-cylinder engine has, for being an SUV, it has very good punch to it. So, and this punch can be felt whether it's from zero or it can be felt from just cruising along. So if I'm just cruising along the highway and I just punch it, it responds. There is a very small lag. If I were to give you a number, it'd be just under a quarter second of a lag from the time that you press the accelerator, you punch it, and then you feel the car punching you back. So it is very good. In fact, if this car equipped with a V6 engine is good, or at least adequate for you, I wouldn't see a need for something that has more power than this. I can tell you, for me, this is plenty power to get around. I wouldn't expect to be winning any races with it, but for an SUV, this is plenty fast. In terms of the creature comforts, the seats are very well bolstered. They're very luxurious seats. It has a lot of movement. It has the ability to move lumbar region. It has the area where it moves obviously forward and back, as well as up and down. It also has the thigh support region, like I have mine set up that way. In this particular model, it is not automatic. It does have a lever to retract that, and then you can push it back in place. And of course, there is an option or a model that does support a powered mode for the thigh support. And it really does hug you if you press the button that inflates these supports where the bolstered seats are to fit you in pretty much like a glove if you want to. The softness, the cushion on it is very upscale. You can tell that BMW thought about the comfort of the vehicle as one of the main items of making sure that the car, under the amount of check boxes that you would have from a luxury perspective, comfort would be one of those check boxes. So it does feel very good. I talked about it earlier about the view. The visibility is second to none. Again, because it is an SUV, just looking all the way around, the visibility is excellent. The view out of the dash, or at least from my driving position, is this view right here, which is a very commanding view. And it does explain why many people choose to drive SUVs. It is because you sit up higher, you view things from much higher, would give you a better perspective, and there really is no substitute for that. I understand. I'm not an SUV person myself, but I can understand that point of view. I talked a little bit about the tech, and here the iDrive control and the various modes are no different than what we've seen in previous BMWs. What is different is that the actual knob is a flatter knob. It is not the glossy type anymore, and it's a little bit softer when you move it in either direction and you're moving things around. The stop buttons is here on the center console now, as well as some of your parking sensors and now your various drive modes, electronic parking sensor, etc. The AC controls now on these 2020 models have changed, where now the screen, the digital screen that shows you where your fan or temperature controls are, which is dual zone, by the way, and then of course your screen, your giant screen, which does support Apple CarPlay. And what I like about the new BMWs is that not only do they support wireless Apple CarPlay, but they support the full screen Apple CarPlay. The other changes that you've seen on the new BMWs are that the instrument cluster is now a digital instrument cluster, and it now shows a mini map, or you can change the view to have a few other things on there. But in the end, like for instance here on the right, it shows like the lateral G's, forward G's, etc. So if I punch it here, you see how that needle moves a little bit. If I were to make a turn a little bit, it's going to move. Here I'm turning a little bit to the right, so you see that dot move around. It'll show what station you're listening to. It will show the drive mode you're on. It will even show your efficiency and the one, of course, as well as some of your trip numbers. But the one that I usually leave it on is the one that shows the power and torque of the vehicle. So now that I got a chance to drive it, I got a chance to look at what would that driving experience be like. It was a very surprisingly good experience in that it was an upscale experience. It was very punchy, so it gives you a very rewarding driving experience from the power point of view. It is very sporty for an SUV of this size, and knowing that it's quote-unquote just a 6-cylinder engine, it has a lot of punch and it has a lot of agility. Again, it won't be as nimble as a coupe or sedan, but it is a pleasure to drive, and the comfort and the feel surrounded by the upscale components, you almost feel privileged to be driving that car. So the driving experience is what you would expect of a car in this class, a car of this price. So let's talk about price now. This car's base price is $71,000. So depending on the number of options that you put in, that number could climb easily $12,000, $15,000. But do keep in mind that the base price would probably get you 90% of what you need. I've talked about in other videos that the number one thing that you want is a good punchy engine. That is the most expensive component of any car. If you get it configured with the 6-cylinder inline 335 horsepower engine, 330 foot-pounds of torque, you can't go wrong. Everything else comes second. It will have the very basic, it will still look this good. It will still have leather seats. It may have a few other manual controls, but it will get you there. Is that a lot price to pay? It depends on what you're willing. If you compare other competitors to this, where other competitors skimp many times is on the power. So they'll be configured very similarly. Their price may be around the same, but then you look at the power of some competitors, you will probably notice that it lags a little bit. So if you need to match the power, you end up getting a vehicle that will be slightly more, sometimes a lot more. So it is a definite bargain, and it is a car that I would not mind owning because of what I just talked about. Would you do the same? If you're an SUV person and your wallet, your pocketbook can afford it, I recommend it by all means. If you're looking for something that it's a little bit easier on the wallet. They do have some models that are slightly smaller, and it will save you money. Again, you're not just paying for the luxury and everything, you're also paying for the size. So they're the smaller models that will get you the level of luxury that you want at a reduced size. But it depends on what you want to do. I recommend the car. I would buy the car, and I highly would, without being redundant, recommend that if you get a chance to drive one, you do. My name is George. This is GLLR Cars, and as always, drive safe.